Hey everybody, back with another tabletop, and today another video by request from somebody in the comments, one of the subscribers. I love that you guys are asking for videos. I think it's fantastic, and I appreciate it because man, you guys are thinking of stuff, content that I didn't think about. So I appreciate it. Definitely keep it coming. There's some stuff I can't or won't do, but this kind of thing, absolutely, absolutely. So the request was, can you do a video talking about how to inspect 1911s? And it's a great thing that we should understand. Now, I want to say we're going to be threading kind of a line right between two videos I've already made here. So I made one video talking about how to choose the right 1911. And that's like talking about it should be the proper design, all steel, 5 inch, blah, blah, blah. And then I made another video talking about the manual of arms. How do I, as the end user, interface with this pistol? How does all this work? But this question is really specific and in between those two videos because it's like, how do I inspect the 1911 to know something's right or wrong? What should I be concerned about, right? So this is a great question and something, if you're shopping for a 1911, it's definitely worth knowing. Now, I will say there's going to be some stuff in here where I'm going to say straight up just don't buy the gun if it's that way. There's other stuff where I might say, okay, if you want to learn how to do some gunsmithing, it's fixable. Some stuff, it's as easy as swapping parts. A lot of this is just going to be for you to kind of make a judgment call, but there are some hard lines where I will not go any further with a gun if I see certain things. So I'm going to just run through a bunch of them as fast as I can because I don't want to take too long on this video here. So stay with me. All right, so right away, and today we're going to be using the TSOS Historical 1911 for this video. So when I am inspecting a 1911, you just start by looking at it. There's a lot of things I can learn just by looking at the gun. And the most obvious one is the barrel bushing fit. Now, on a factory, by the way, caveat, we're talking about factory 1911s. I'm not talking about semi-custom. I'm not talking about custom. That's another world. Don't really, not super interested. Factory 1911s. So when you're looking at the barrel bushing, there's always going to be a little bit of a gap in the bottom of the barrel bushing here, what I call the beard, right? Where this bushing, when it's in lockup, is going to want to kick out a little bit, and that's normal. You should be able to see even a little daylight in between there, okay, and that's totally normal. You can't really see it on this one because it is ultra well fit for a factory 1911. What you don't want to see is where this bushing, the bottom of it, is kicked out so far. I've seen some on like a Springfield once where you could stick a paper clip. If you like bend out just one bar on a paper clip, you could stick it right through that gap. That's really bad. That bushing is taking a ton of abuse when it's not properly fit, slapping back and forth like that in a gun when it's firing. So that, to me, you can change that. You can fit a bushing. It's tricky. It's not any fun, but yes, you can change it, and it's not expensive to do. So that's something to look for. Other things, just visually. Also, I'm going to check if you have a tenon front sight. So you have dovetail sights, which are these, where you have actually a piece of metal slid into the slide in that cutout. Then you have these where it is what's called a tenon front sight, Tenon. And there's just a metal rod, just a piece of metal that's run down through this slide at the base of this front sight, and they on the bottom they sort of peen it and smash it flat so that it's just semi-permanently stuck in there. You shouldn't have any play in that front sight. Okay. Is it fixable? Yes. It's really not any fun. You're probably going to have to take it to somebody who knows what they're doing to snug up that front sight. I'm also, with the hammer down, everything, I'm just going to, grab the gun by the front, by the barrel and the slide, or the slide in the frame, and just shake it. and see what's going on. This one is silent. Okay, a little bit of flippity floppity on the grip safety. That's okay. I should not hear things bouncing around or creaking or anything. Now, what I'm not doing, I am not testing for slide to frame fit. That doesn't matter. There are people who will say, you know, your 1911 should feel like it's on ball bearings when you run the action. No. That's if you want that, go get a custom gun. Okay, but I'm not paying $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 so that I can pull my slide back and feel super happy about myself. No, thank you. So, slide to frame fit basically doesn't matter. Now, you know, the tighter it is, the better, to a degree. Really, what you have to realize is when the slide to frame fit is super duper tight, if your gun is dry and it starts getting dirty and it starts getting hot, that gun will fail when the gun is overly tight. So a factory GI properly fit 1911, even new out of the box, is going to have a little bit of play between the frame and the slide, and that's okay. But in terms of like accuracy, no, just get out of town. It doesn't matter at all. Okay, another thing is I'm going to push on the bottom of the trigger guard and the top of the barrel hood and just push down. Okay, if there's a little bit of play in there, which this is an extremely solid gun. I mean, you can see I'm turning my fingers white. I'm really pushing harder than I should, but that's good. What you don't want to see is if you push down and the slide does this and your barrel unlocks, you see how it dips down? That is mega bad, okay? That means one of two things. That means your springs are undersprung, underweighted, which is 100% likely. Or the one that's concerning is somebody thought they were fitting a barrel like a cool guy and they took off too much material right here. And now that barrel doesn't fit and that gun is worthless. That barrel is worthless, okay? That should not happen. If your gun gets pulled out of battery by this test, that is a very bad sign. You need a new barrel. Or if that's the case, don't buy that gun. All right, moving on back. Let's go into controls. Grip safety, just make sure it works. Okay, there you go. And then you grab the gun, pistol works. Happy days. Pull the hammer back. You should have two distinct clicks, half cock, full cock. Push on the hammer. Just push it forward, not super hard, but just push it forward a little bit. If that hammer disengages, put the pistol down and run as fast as you can. That pistol will shoot you. I've only heard of that happening. I've never seen it, so be real honest about that. Okay, while your hammer's back, you can test the thumb safety. So what are we looking for? Straight down, nice and positive, straight up, okay? We don't want it too light, you don't want it too heavy. It should just click up, click down. What you don't want is a ton of slop and a ton of over travel. So you see there how it's at its stopping point, but I can still push it a little further. That's okay. That's acceptable. I'll use my other one as an example as well. Right? Has a little, this one has almost zero. Like this safety is awesome. Super positive, okay? But what you don't want is, you know, this is just a sloppy mess, right? I would get concerned that this is not fitted properly, and I would be worried it's not going to do its job. Let's talk trigger. We're going to have to camp here for a minute and talk about triggers. I want you to understand something because it's very common. People pull the trigger on a 1911 and it's either good or it's bad and they don't know why. And I want to explain to you why. So just be patient with me here, but there's a few things to talk about. So when I pick up the pistol, the first thing I'm doing in terms of the trigger is I want to see how much up and down and then left and right play is in the trigger. This is the first major contributor to what a good 1911 or bad 1911 trigger feels like. Let me show you why. Here's what your trigger looks like outside of the pistol, okay? So this trigger slides like this in grooves in the pistol. It's not like most triggers that kind of hinge and rock. This one slides. It's a sliding trigger like this, okay? So when you're pulling the trigger, it looks like this, right? If you have a lot of play here and here on the left and right of the bow, you're going to get a lot of this. If you have a lot of play on the top and the bottom of the trigger, you're going to get a lot of this. You see where we're going? So when you start pulling the trigger, right, you start pulling it back and you get all this mess, that trigger is going to feel very unsure. You're going to pull it and it's going to kind of do this. It's exaggerated, but for the sake of illustration, that's what's happening. So you got to pull the trigger and it's doing this. It's sliding back cockeyed, okay? And it's also jiggling just everywhere. There's too much play. So when the back of your trigger bow hits the sear wall and you're ready to break, there's all this play all over the place. And it's hard to perceive what's going on with your sear, okay? Now, on a GI trigger, what's acceptable? They're going to have play no matter what, okay? This one has almost none, actually. You can see here, very little up and down, very little left to right. This is an exceptional GI trigger on this T-Sauce. So that's the first thing I'm feeling for on the trigger. The next thing is my take-up. Your take-up is from the point from which you touch the trigger and press to the point where you hit the sear wall. So push, boom, I'm at the wall. Okay, I've hit something hard. So my take-up, what am I testing for? I am feeling the tension in the leaf spring. So the leaf spring sits in your pistol like this. Okay? So it's sitting in here like that. And basically the leaf spring's job, you have this hand here, which is the long one. Okay? This guy is pushing on your actual sear. So when you pull the trigger back and your trigger bar or your trigger bow pushes on the sear to disengage the hammer, this guy is pushing against you. Okay? This middle hand, its job, if you look down the pistol, you see that little shiny round guy right here? That's called your disconnector. So the middle hand here is pushing against that, and it's also pushing right here on the back of your trigger. So in a way, both of these, the left and the middle hand, are pushing against your trigger. They're pushing it back forward. Okay? So if there's slop in your trigger bow, you can take a lot of it out, or some of it, by bending these two forward so that they're pushing against your trigger bow and sort of snugging it up a little bit. That's going to help your trigger feel a lot more firm. What it will also do is it's going to make your break feel a little more crisp. Okay, so when you actually get to the sear wall, okay, there I'm at the wall, push, 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 push. So right now, what am I pushing against? I'm pushing against that leaf spring, okay, and then I finally break. All right. So you can crisp up and firm up your trigger just by taking your leaf spring and bending these two guys forward. So if I'm looking this way, I'm going to bend those two, the left and the middle, that way. And it doesn't take much. We're talking like that, okay? Very, very little. You don't want to go crazy. And then, of course, your left leaf spring, that is what causes your grip safety to rebound. Okay? So I'm feeling for that. Now, if it's super duper light, is it the end of the world? No, because one of two things. I can bend those forward like I just showed you, or I'm going to do what I'm going to do anyway. Every 1911 I gets a Wilson bulletproof leaf spring. That's what this is. New recoil spring, firing pin spring, and mainspring. No matter what, no questions asked. They all get that for me. So that's just me. All right, continuing on with the trigger discussion. So we've talked about the take-up. Now I'm at the wall. Let's talk about the sear engagement. Okay, boom, I hit the wall, I'm up against it, and I'm pushing, and no creep. Okay, what is creep? When you hit the wall, that sear wall, and you're pushing, if you get like a and it still doesn't break, and then you push some more and then it breaks, that little is creep. And what's happening is your sear and your hammer, instead of just doing this, breaking off of each other, they're going like that. They're moving on each other, but they're not breaking off of each other. That's not bad. In fact, it's quite common on a GI pistol. What you should not feel when you're pulling, when you get to this wall, it should not feel crunchy, grindy, scrapey. You should hear no noise, right? It should just be maybe a little creep, push, and break. If you feel grinding, crunching, scraping, anything like that, don't do it. Okay? It's just not good. So, if you look, I'm going to quote one of my favorite pastors. His name's Keith Moore. He has this phrase: if it ain't quite, it ain't right. Okay? If you think something's wrong, if your gut's yelling at you, listen to your gut. The sear and hammer engagement is pretty much the one part of the pistol that makes it dangerous if it's not right. Of course, you can feel the reset. That reset should feel tactile. You should feel it and hear it and see it. Okay? Boom. Pops back out. I feel it. I hear it. I see it. All right? So continuing on, let's go ahead and crack the pistol open. Now I'm going to show you something that's not really known about. I've only known one person who pays attention to this. Now I'm positive the custom guru guys know about this, so I don't think I have hidden wisdom here, but I've just not heard anybody talk about it much. So if you take your pinky finger and stick it down in the magwell and push against this back wall, the first opening you come to, okay, the top of that opening, you see how it's shiny on my pistol, okay? What's going on there is if you take a magazine and you insert it in the gun and while we're doing this test, press down your magazine release, because what I want is for this magazine to do this, okay? And especially if I twist the magazine like this, I want to scrape the brass in my magazine against that back wall like this, okay? And it should not get caught. Okay, so what's happening is the magazine is going up, and that little opening on the back wall of the magazine well, what's happening is your brass is getting caught on that little corner of that opening right there because it's a hard 90. Okay? Is this a deal breaker? No. You can fix it if you're willing to be brave and go slow and be patient, be really careful. Essentially what needs to happen is you need to round off that steel right there. Now you don't want to bring this dimension, okay? You don't want to bring this up at all. You don't want to open the hole up anymore. You just want to go from this to that, okay? That way, as your pistol or as your magazine is sliding up, the back of your brass does this. It does not get caught. Whereas when it's on a sharp 90, it'll get caught, and you'll notice like you're slamming the mag in the pistol, and it's not going in. That's just something to look for. Okay, really easy to fix with a Dremel and a very light sanding wheel. You can do it with a file. I don't like the file method because it's just hard to do properly, but anyway, something to be aware of. I'm going to just feel the ejector here. That should not move. If it does, it's not the end of the world, but really on a properly built slab side, it shouldn't move. Does the feed ramp need to be polished? No. Moving on. I like a standard barrel throat. Okay? No funny business. Just a straight barrel throat, and this should be smooth. There should be no dents anywhere. And I'm also going to take a look at these little feet here, these two little feet on the bottom of the barrel hooks. And I don't want these to be chewed up. I want to make sure those are nice and firm. The barrel link should not have a ton of play side to side. What you don't want is this. You don't want the barrel foot, or the lug, and then you have a ton of space in between your lugs and your barrel link. I have seen that on a rock island where the link was like a freaking communion wafer, and you could cock it like 20 degrees left to right. That is terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. If that's the case on your gun, you better be ready to replace that link or that barrel. Me personally, I'm just not buying that pistol. That is a really important thing for reliability, and just so, the gun doesn't freaking fall apart while you're shooting it. And really, the last thing I would say before you put the gun back together is look down the bore and make sure you have rifling, because yes, you actually have to do that nowadays. Go watch my Colt video, Tragedy and Failure. Yeah, actually make sure the gun has rifling in it. I can't believe I have to say that out loud. So yeah, that's it. Just, I'm just making sure all this stuff works. I'm making sure the pistol is safe. I'm making sure it's mostly in spec. I'm making sure that I'm not going to have to spend, more than the pistol's worth to get it working properly. I'm sure you guys have heard this phrase, don't help the slide home. What are people talking about when they say that? Okay, that means you pull the slide back and you help it forward. You don't just let it go. A good 1911, you can help it home. And I'm going to prove that to you. So if you got good magazines and you got a properly built 1911, you should be able to pull the slide back, help it forward, and that you should feel almost zero resistance bullet in the chamber. And I have a bullet in the chamber. I'm going to do it again. Out comes that one. Zero resistance. Back. Zero resistance. Back. Zero resistance. Okay? These are feeding like the gun is empty. Okay? All the way back to slide lock. Now, I can just hear the safety guys. I can just hear them. I can just hear them screaming. So, you got to be really careful when you're doing that, obviously. Finger off the trigger, gun in a safe direction, be really safe. However, and I know some people are going to say snap caps. Here's why I'm going to say no. Snap caps are not built to the same dimensions of actual ammunition. Okay? Take your calipers to a snap cap. They are not spec'd to factory ammunition. They're smaller, so that's not a good test. So what am I testing for when I do this test that I just illustrated for you? What I want to make sure is not happening. You see, I've got the magazine in there. What I don't want is for this magazine follower to nosedive, and what can happen is the round slams into the feed ramp and stops. I should have a very smooth transition up the feed ramp into the barrel. I should not be feeling a bunch of resistance. It shouldn't be clunking and slapping and jolting around. It should just be a very smooth, just up and in the barrel, up and in the barrel, up and in the barrel. And I just illustrated it with hollow points, okay? So that means the feed ramp is the proper angle and width. That means the magazines are good. That means the barrel throat is good. That means that your extractor is good because it's not getting caught on the rim of the case. You just go down the list, that little test right there, and you can do that a bunch. Just keep running a bunch of ammo through the gun, do several magazines. Again, there are going to be people who say you should never help the slide forward. They're incorrect. I respectfully disagree with them wholeheartedly. And the reason is they have it in their mind that unless you slam the rounds home, the gun doesn't work. I just proved to you that was not true. With hollow points, by the way. If the gun is spec'd and built properly and you have good magazines, it should feed that ammunition no problem. Okay? So that test, again, be very careful. I want you to be safe. I don't want you to get hurt. But that's a good test to test how the weapon feeds. If you feel like when the slide's going home and the rounds are hitting that feed ramp and just stopping and you're creating failures, yeah, that's not good. The gun should be just very smoothly feeding that ammo up. Here's another thing. If you want to go ahead and put a live mag in and then drop the slide, now take that round out. If that bullet is mashed back into the casing, that's not good. That means that bullet is hitting the feed ramp and it's smashing the front of that bullet way too hard. It should be feeding up and in, no problem. Now, I'm going to stop there. That is about as far as I would go just inspecting a 1911. Can you go further? Yes. You can crack open the mainspring housing and look at the sear and the disconnector. You can look at a whole bunch more stuff. But for just a quick, cursory check on the gun, just to make sure everything's kind of in spec and made properly, that's what I do. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that answered your question, whoever asked it, and we will see you next time.